going to ensure that, that industries are protected so that they will make the best out of these funds. But the truth is that we all know the challenge of accessing forex as we speak today. And we'll be saying that the industry must be prioritized. This sector should not be seen, because most times it's being seen from perspective of a business perspective, but the industry should not be only seen from business perspective. They should be seen from social perspective. They should be seen from an inclusive perspective. How are they trying to go beyond making a business case? Most of our members, I can tell you, not up to 5% were able to access this loan. And many are still wondering what happened. And we are believing that this industry has so much to offer, and yet not up to 5% of those that applied were able to access the loan. Even those that access the loan, they are not able to access forex. Now, you see how the role the monetary policy and fiscal policy plays in making a case for messing security. Of course, we also look at the tariff regimes. You look at, for instance, let me give a typical scenario again. A situation whereby, before this government came on board, a farmer company, a local farmer, put up a huge investment to manufacture a life-saving product. A life-saving product. The government of Nigeria, our government, celebrated this industry for this innovative idea they've taken part on. And guess what? Barely 3 months after putting up this huge investment, the same government gave approval for such products that we celebrated to be administrative approval to be imported into Nigerian space. And on this blackmail that's always come up from those that import medicines to Nigeria, oh, we don't have capacity, oh, we don't have this. And that is how that company went under, not being able to deliver on these innovative products that we so much celebrated. And that is some of those policies. So it has so much to do with everything, the finance, the regulatory, the research, in fact, I'm also looking at also the foreign affairs, and all to be inclusive. Because if you do this policy, if you're looking at message security from health perspective alone, you're not going to get it. Most times in a fora, I see people asking, what percentage of GDP is the industry contributing to the economy? That is the reason why they should prioritize the sector. And I say, no, if you can tell me the level of GDP that the Nigerian armed forces are contributing to secure Nigeria, then we'll be on the same page to have this conversation. Because you need to start looking beyond just making a business case. We all are aware the challenges we're having on vaccine nationalization, vaccine inequity. I'm just imagining if those countries did not put up investment policies, off-taker to those companies that are manufacturing, then by today, I guess most of us will continue to suffer from COVID-19. But because some people prioritize and see that there's need to support the industry even when they are producing, even when they are manufacturing, and that helps to build capacity of the industry. And I can imagine if that company was supported, the company that provides life-saving products, if they were supported by the year 2021, I want to believe that they must have gone into another innovation. But when the technologies are not encouraged, innovations are not encouraged, everybody wants to be an importer because, like Mazo Habonwa said, is a cheap route. Why will I go into investing huge amount of money into an industry when I am sure that the outcome is not going to be that positive? Why not go the easier route? And I can tell you, the local farmer, not just that we are closing the gap in access to medicine, we are also creating jobs. An average importer employs, few managers to manage all his distribution network. But a farmer manufacturing company sets up a facility, billions of naira worth of investment, and I can tell you, some of them call, some of the company owners will call you and say, Frank, what am I going to do with this investment I put up in Nigeria? Is it a mistake I made? Is it a mistake? Because they can see that you put up so much investment, but your returns on investment are not coming. Why can't the person walk the other way and be an importer? But like I always tell them, you are a patriot. You are a patriot. And I always see the manufacturers, any pharmaceutical manufacturer in Nigeria is not just ordinary. They should be treated as patriots, because I don't see the reason why I should be producing in Nigeria when I don't see why I should not go the other way, because it makes more business case for me. But because they believe so much in Nigeria and they put their funds in Nigeria, they hire more people in Nigeria. Guess what? When you produce, you're building more capacity. I can imagine if the tempo, was sustained by supporting the industry when people buy from made in Nigeria, when governments follow faithfully the policy of national drug policy to buy from made in Nigeria, and not just that, when you buy from Nigeria, you buy from these industries, you pay timely, because these are some of the challenges.
Mr. Frank, thank you so much there. And let's join Dr. Obi Adigwe. They talked about policy, framework, regulatory, and capacity. Let's talk about capacity, which you mentioned earlier with, you saying that things are not working the way it should, getting funding, technology, innovation. If capacity is not well maintained, what happens to our medicine security in Nigeria? These young scientists coming up, if they get better offers to leave this country, what happens to our capacity to produce medicine? Dr. Sam Adigwe. Dr. Obi Adigwe, please.
Yeah, thank you, Jume. That's a really, really good question, Jume. When I was appointed Director General of NIPRID, one of the first things I did was to hold a staff forum where I spoke to all my staff. Like I mentioned earlier, you cannot get a higher qualified set of people in the entire pharma value chain than we have at NIPRID. I have world-class scientists, about 8 or 9 professors, somewhere around 70 masters and PhDs, all aggregated at the various different areas where pharmaceutical development are situated. And in that meeting, I told them categorically that my #1 priority will be staff welfare. And I am really, really grateful to my principals for having supported NIPRID so far. I had mentioned the work that we did with Speaker Gbajabiamila. We're very close with Chair Sununu and Chair Oloriegbe. And my supervising minister, Mamora, there is no week I do not touch base with him. I have an open door, and pharmaceutical manufacturing and harnessing our phytomedicinal potential is always on the top of his list. And with that kind of support, I was able to pull in a lot of external support that made me be able to keep my promises. And so within the 2.5 years I've been Director General of NIPRID, from a less than 6% of my staff who had access to official IT devices, as I speak to you, 100% of all confirmed NIPRID staff have been supplied an official IT device to support their work. I spoke to my friend who was at that time the High Commissioner to India, and he gave me 10 slots to train my staff in India at no charge to NIPRID. Consequently, things like, access to power, access to materials, prioritizing from researchers' activity of these measures are some of the things that, has been mentioned earlier, that anybody who has a PhD and a really good PhD, who decides to practice under some of the onerous conditions we have here in Nigeria is not just a patriot. That person is an angel. I qualified, as you know, with a master's degree from the University of Leeds and a PhD a master's degree from the University of Edinburgh when it was at its peak, and a PhD from the University of Leeds. And based on my passion for this country, just like my father before me, who was sponsored by the British to do his PhD at Swansea, I came back to Nigeria to contribute. And I'm really grateful that at 3 various levels, at the National Assembly, at PMG Man, and at NIPRID, I've been able to demonstrate that we can bring value to what Nigeria is doing. But Jume, there's one thing I want to mention, because a lot of a lot of discussion has gone on in terms of policies. And someone will think that we're not doing anything in terms of policies. Let us be categorical, okay? In terms of policies and in terms of an environment that encourages medicine security, where we are today is better than where we were 6 years ago. 6 years ago, we had the common external tariff, whereby products that were imported into Nigeria came at 0 duty, whereas products that were manufactured in Nigeria, people had to pay duty of up to 20–30% for their equipment and inputs. As Executive Secretary of PMG Man, I joined the team that traveled to 15 ECOWAS countries to work towards reversing that policy. 2016, based on our engagement with the government and based on government's receptive ears, we pushed forward the 2016 fiscal policy. That fiscal policy is a policy that ring-fenced 4 categories of medicines for local manufacturing: antibiotics, hematinics, alkaloids, and antimalarials. That singular move by this government has, from our analysis, led to new establishment or refurbishment of close to 20–25 factories. And at the last time we did our analysis, an inflow of close to $100 million into the economy. This administration also put forward the Executive Order number 3, and where it says specifically in subsection 4 that locally manufactured pharmaceuticals will be prioritized, and went on to add Executive Order number 5 that prioritizes the utilization of indigenous science, technical engineering, and other potentials as inputs for the industry. These are all policies that are in place to encourage medicine's security by utilizing and harnessing our potentials. And finally, even before COVID came on board, this administration also put forward 3 billion naira to look at local vaccines manufacturing. For the first time in history, government put forward 3 billion naira and partnered with a local manufacturer and formed the BioVaccines Nigeria Limited Company. If we had not done that about 3–4 years ago, as at today, we would have been at a negative position, not even ground zero. So these are some of the policies that people should know about and, at least appreciate. Because we say, when you appreciate what has been done for you, more will be done. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying we're at Uhuru. Nowhere there. I like how some of the previous debaters and contributors mentioned prioritization. I want to look at prioritization from a slightly different level. In Nigeria, we keep hearing about hundreds of billions that's voted to the food sector, hundreds of billions of dollars that's voted to the security sector, hundreds of billions that's voted to textile. I will be very categorical about this, and if I'm wrong, I will eat my heart. There is no sector in Nigeria who has higher priority than the pharmaceutical sector. First of all,
Well, well said. I'm happy that you said this. You know that yes, that's the positive aspect. But you know, initially when we started, you were full of complaints with respect to lack of funding of this particular medical subsector. But be that as it may, we will take a short break. When we come back, we will also begin to look at other perspectives to this conversation. Thank you for staying with us, and please don't go away.
The much anticipated UEFA Euro 2021 is finally here. Can Portugal defend the title they won 4 years ago as they face world champions France, Europe giants Germany, Spain, Italy and England? Catch all the action via live transmission, in-depth studio analysis, fixtures, results, updates, and lots more on NTA, Africa's largest TV network. For sponsorship and advert placement, contact Bola on 08037044286 or Idris on 08034633644. This broadcast is proudly brought to you by NTA in partnership with Media Business Solutions, MBS Sports.
Nigerian youths are about the greatest assets the country has at the moment. It is therefore not surprising that the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari is strategically responding to the yearnings of the youth through multiple projects and programs. Youth entrepreneurship support, yes, by Bank of Industry, the Youth Investment Fund by the CBN, and several other conditional cash transfer programs. Recruitment of 774,000 social workers, majority of whom are youth, and so many other projects that are beneficial to youths directly or indirectly. If the administration can do all this, definitely with a degree of patience and time, it can achieve more. Nigerian youths must come together to say no to terrorism, no to vandalism, and no to all disruptive tendencies. Hashtag Youth for Greater Nigeria. Pacifying the youths, unifying the nation.
Well, you're welcome back. This is Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the NTA. Now, let's return to Mazi Ohuabunwa. Mazi Ohuabunwa, let's talk about the essential ingredients now vis-a-vis raw materials, because we've learned from Algia Zainab here that even paracetamol requires some essential ingredients imported into this country. So what are the major sources of raw materials for pharmaceutical products? And again, what should be the role of alternative and the complementary medicine in the quest for medicine security in Nigeria?
Okay, sorry, I said Kiran, thank you so much. Thank you for the opportunity to, make some input in this area. Of course, we have two sources of raw materials for manufacturing. One is local, one is foreign. And even within that, we have two categories. You have the active pharmaceutical ingredients and you have the non-active. I believe that given our level of technology today and the fact that we will not follow through with a very, very, very well done local production plan that I said was done in the 70s that envisaged by now the petrochemical industry, chemical industry in Nigeria will have gone into the aromatic phase that we're going to produce pharmaceutical raw materials, haven't passed the first and second phases. But we didn't move with that. I think first because of policy inconsistency, second, economic degeneration, both globally and locally. So we left the investment in that area and focused mostly on nitrogen, urea, and maybe some raw materials that are being used for making plastics. We haven't focused on the halogenation and the aromatic phase. So for now, our ability to produce active pharmaceutical ingredient in the country is low, if not fairly non-existent. So we have to import those pharmaceutical raw materials. But for the what you call excipients, additives, and those things that are used to bulk pharmaceutical products, we have the capacity. And that is where I think is the primary area of focus of NIPRI and the local research institutes and universities. From our local, take for example, pharmaceutical grade starch. Those things should never be imported anymore. So those things can be made locally. There are many things, flavorants, colorants, additives, bulking agents, and such excipients. Nigeria must focus. One of the things that I have said that is delaying our progress is the inability to set up targets, work to achieve them, enforce them. I have proposed that NIPRI, for example, should be funded and given specific period and say between now and the next 2 years, between next and 5 years, these items we're importing should no longer be imported because we have the substrate, we have the starting blocks with which we can make those excipients. It's a matter of appropriate focus and the right incentives. Certain things can be done by government, certain can be done by private sector. But private sector needs invest in its incentive to be able to bring this money. But the state can invest on projects that have long-term and multiply effect in an industry. Supply of raw materials is fundamental. If we're talking about improving or increasing local pharmaceutical output, raw materials become important. Why don't we start from the lower-hanging fruits? How we can then get the excipients where we're attracting a private sector to invest in API production. Perhaps the kind of funding that CBN has begun to give may be one way of getting some companies to invest in APIs. And then talking about local raw material production, and even APIs can also be developed from our area of comparative advantage, which is phytomedicines, which is traditional and alternative sources of medicine in Nigeria. We have our flora and fauna very well endowed with pharmaceutical active ingredients, but because they're the natural sources, we probably don't have the capacity to appropriately isolate them and use them in drug production. We can at least use them in a more refined method, which is what the Ministry of Health, my sister Zainab, is promoting. How can we get traditional and alternative medicine as sources of providing medicines in natural setting for our people, and also become an opportunity to go further and identify and isolate some of those actives which you can now go through escalation in a bigger factory to produce them either as naturally occurring resources or look at their structure and synthesize them into easily available moieties. This is what we need to do. So I'm recommending my guys that first, government policy that it has made should be enforced. If government policy is not enforced, private sector will take the least line of resistance, which is to import anything importable And if you give the private sector opportunity to import water, they will import water. That's the way it happens all over the world. So the government must say.
Okay, thank you so much, Maji. Sam, we're running out of time. We need to come back to the studio. Hajia Zainab, how do we change the narrative here and begin to walk the talk instead of talking and not walking it?
I think, like you have said, has been said, we need to act, we need to go into practical action. And then using the practical action, we need to look at experts who can promote practicality. E.g., let me give you an example. The Minister of State has set up a committee of experts to look into some of these medicinal plants in a bid to be able to bring in more products from that. So that is something practical. And that committee meets quarterly. So we are even going to meet next month. That is a practical action. And number two, the proposal is one of the practical action is to ensure the passage of the Traditional Medicine Council bill. That bill will be able to regulate the practice of the quacks and also ensure that there is well-training deserved. You may wish to know that there are over 48 universities of traditional medicine in China. 48, we don't have any. So the ability to set up an institute of TCAM is on the way. These are practical measures. And then more importantly, like he has said, there is a good collaboration. There should be more synergy between the local manufacturers, PMG-MAN, and the relevant agencies. There should be a forum where there can be need to harness all the potentials and look at all these challenges. These are practical steps. And more further, with the coming of COVID-19 pandemic, you can see that the government is forcing itself to look at the local content. There's an attempt now to set up, not only to promote, like he said, the bio-vaccine unit in Lagos is being looked at to be supported. And there's another attempt to establish another vaccine facility in the north. So all these things, they may be slow, but it's a gradual attempt. And we pray that just like you can see that the present administration is really focusing on infrastructural development. We are seeing the rails, we are seeing the roads. So in medicine, we are gradually seeing the practitioners, some of them are beginning to be recognized. We are training them, and research institute like NIPRID has said, it's been supported. And we hope there will be a better synergy so that Nigeria too can promote its own local content. If we don't do that, we'll never grow. These are just a few things I want to say.
All right, thank you. Let's return to Lagos, where we have Frank and, of course, Dr. B. Adigwe. Both of you would like to take your closing thoughts very, very briefly. But if you like, why don't you dwell on the issue of complementary medical alternative that we could apply? Of course, we've spoken much about the orthodox method.
Very much, Kirian. I think it's better to dwell on what is most important, and that's changing our philosophies as a people. And in one word, what we need to start looking at is prioritization at 3 levels. Stakeholder prioritization. All stakeholders, multidisciplinary, need to realize that the pharmaceutical sector is the biggest sector that they can begin to play in. Currently, Africa does $50 billion every year. With the AFCFTA and with the COVID outcomes, that 50 billion is set to grow by 10 to 20%. Unlike agriculture, where you have the East Africans, and solid minerals, where you have the Central Africans and the South Africans. In terms of pharmaceutical manufacturing hub, nobody owns that space now. And nobody is better placed in terms of potential to play that role than Nigeria. So Nigeria has an opportunity to emerge as the pharmaceutical and phytomedicinal manufacturing hub for a market that's going to be worth 50 to 70 billion per annum. That, if put together properly, can contribute somewhere between 15 to 20% of our GDP. That's the message for stakeholders. For government has started well. Increasing budget to NIPRID, increasing attention to policies for the manufacturers, but more needs to be done. And I want to thank people like you and Jume there in the studio for the good work that you're doing. It was on one of these sort of programs that somebody in the highest office in Nigeria saw us and invited us to come and make a presentation. And I'm going to shock the entire Nigeria with some very big announcements very soon in terms of phytomedicines. So more needs to be done. We thank government for what they have done, but more needs to be done. Thirdly, and most importantly, personal prioritization. I give people this story. My 2 daughters were born at Leeds General Infirmary. And while I was doing my master's and PhD in the UK, I used to buy medicines from Nigeria to take it to the UK for them to use. People have this erroneous thinking in their head that if a medicine is made in Nigeria, it is of less quality than that is imported. It's not true. And I'm telling you from personal experience, if you go to the pharmacy and you want to purchase any medicine, ask them first, can you give me the one that's made in Nigeria? That is what you need to do to ensure that you and your family have the highest quality medicines and that you're contributing to the national socio-economic development.
Okay, Dr. Sam, Dr. Obi Adigwe, thank you so much. Frank, 1 minute, please. Tell us how we can tap into the huge potentials of alternative medicine in Nigeria for Nigerians.
Thank you so much, NTA team. It starts from self-realization. Self-realization that we have the capacity. And I'm using this opportunity. Most times when you find yourself in fora, people talk about capacity. And I'm using this opportunity. I think NTA, I'm personally going to invite you, using this opportunity to invite you to come and take a look, take a tour to the pharma industry in Nigeria. Let's just have a kind of documentary that will showcase the investments Nigerians have put up. When I talk about self-realization, it starts from buying made in Nigeria medicines. It starts from prioritizing the sector when Nigerians supply, when the industry supply, you should pay timely because that's how we keep being in business. And I'm also using this opportunity also to thank government for the support they've given, the funding, and of course some policies that they've been faithful with. But I'm also asking that they should do more so that we'll continue to be in business, so that we'll be the hub for pharmaceutical manufacturing in Nigeria. We should be seen as the engine room that closes the gap in access to medicine and also trying to help to balance so much inequality in access to medicine. Thank you.
All right. I wish you had dwelt more on the issue of alternative medicine, but time is really not our friend at this moment. So we'd like to appreciate all of you for being part of our show this morning. Pharmacist Zainab Ujudu Sharif, Director of Ujudu Sharif, as Director of Head of Alternative and Complementary Medicine. It's been a pleasure talking to you as always.
Thank you. I'm always happy to be here.
And of course, Dr. Obi Adigwe, Director General of Nigerian Institute of Pharmaceutical Research and Development, NIPRIT. Well, of course, we would like to appreciate you for coming on the program today. And of course, we'd like to thank Frank Moneme. Frank, thank you indeed for coming. Frank is a pharmacist with a specialization in market access and consumer advocate for local pharmaceutical manufacturing. And Mazi Simon Huabonwa, President of the Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria, who reached us via Zoom from Umuahia. Thank you indeed for your time and your thoughts this morning. All right, so that's Good Morning Nigeria for today. We thank you for watching. We'll be back again tomorrow morning for a fresh edition of the program. I am Kirian Umayo. Do have a great day.
And I'm Juma Yusuf. Do enjoy yourself.